Yes, indeed, eventually. The National Science and Maths quiz is about to begin. But why don't we have today's message? It's called The Pleasure of Being Useless. Do you have a mentor, someone who has already done what you are trying to do, and so is able to guide, advise, and nurture you through your journey? I have many. I sit at the feet of many great men and women who have traveled the path I am navigating. It's great because it means I can learn from other people's mistakes and make much more informed decisions myself. Being a mentor is even more fulfilling. For me, there's no better way to apply knowledge than in the teaching of others. If you know something, I believe it's an obligation, no, a duty to share it with others. Sadly, I'm aware that it's not everyone in the world who shares this viewpoint. Now, for some people, their knowledge is what sets them apart from the crowd. And so sharing it would mean giving up their specialness. We all know people like this. In school, there were teachers who cultivated the reputation for being wicked. They would deliberately ask questions to which they haven't taught us the answers, and then they will lash us for getting it wrong. We all know doctors who won't answer your questions about what is wrong with your own body. Your own body. There are mechanics who will tell you that you need a car part, but if you dare question them further, they will tell you, take your car away if you think they are cheating you. Every day, we turn on our radios to hear politicians loudly criticize each other, belittling their ideas and efforts without offering any practical solutions of their own. I've heard hairdressers saying that you must train your apprentice well, but never teach her everything you know. Yeah. Now, I have personally felt very strong about this for a long time. Okay, I believe that knowledge that cannot be shared is useless. You know, when I was younger, I went to primary school in Wales. Now, I took swimming lessons. All the kids my age had already learned how to swim in nursery school, so I had to be the only big boy in the training pool with the first years. It was embarrassing. Especially since there was an annoying kid from my class called Jamie Crawford who would keep walking along the pool's edge, following me, pointing at my uncoordinated efforts and laughing at the top of his voice. Eventually, Mr. Simmons, our PE teacher, called him and said, "What are you doing?" "Nothing," he smirked. Can you swim, Jamie?" Mr. Simmons asked him. "Yes," quipped Jamie proudly. "Then shouldn't you be helping Kojo instead of laughing at him?" Jamie looked confused. Mr. Simmons dismissed my little tormentor with one final statement thrown at his back. He said, "If you don't want to help, you don't have to. But don't take pleasure in being useless." And that sums up my sentiment on this matter. Why take pleasure in other people's lack of knowledge when you are in a position to educate them? Knowledge has no value if it is defined by the ignorance of others. My dear friend, today let us embrace the spirit of mentorship. If someone hadn't taught us, how would we have gained all the knowledge that we think makes us superior today? Let us share what we know so that our knowledge may grow. Let us take pride in seeing others excel as a result of the knowledge we gave them. Let us put our gifts to the best use possible by sharing them with others, because refusing to impart our knowledge is the same as admitting that our knowledge is useless. My name is Kojo Yankson, and wisdom has no value until it is shared. Good morning, Ghanafu.
Welcome to the AM News. Now, flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, says the NDC government will create sustainable and decent jobs if voted into power in the December polls. Speaking at the launch of his party's manifesto, the former president stated that the creation of jobs will not only provide growth for the economy, but also add to the prosperity of the people of Ghana. Mr. Mahama opines his position as a former president has offered him a unique opportunity to reflect soberly on the challenges and burdens of the average Ghanaian and their expectations from governments.
Under the 1 million jobs plan, which we have christened Ejumapa, will generate an average of 250,000 decent jobs every year. Our job creation policies would be rapidly deployed through needed interventions that are applied to ensure that all sectors of the economy give priority to the creation of sustainable and decent jobs. The 1 million jobs will be anchored on the big push, an aggressive infrastructure development for jobs. The 10 billion investment over 5 years will stimulate the economy and provide opportunities for businesses to grow, create new entrepreneurs, and employ more people. A national apprenticeship program to train technically skilled human resources for rapid industrialization, job creation, and entrepreneurship will be implemented. NAP, as we call it, will target 500,000 out-of-school youth, including Kayaye. Government will bear the cost of fees for their training, and they'll receive start-up kits on completion of their training. What this means is that we'll register master craftsmen in all the districts around the country. We'll register youth that are interested in going as apprentices to learn a skill and pay the master craftsmen to train them. And when they are finished, we'll give them the kits that they need to start work, whether sewing machines or hair dryers. Through a number of tax exemptions, micro, small, and medium enterprises will be able to plow back their profits, drive the digitization of the economy to provide new jobs, encourage establishment of new businesses, focusing on exports to help create more job opportunities, provide free training in coding to young people across the country, engage a minimum of 300,000 beneficiaries under the Youth Employment Agency, focus on skills acquisition, legalize and regulate Okada, legalize and regulate Okada business in order to make it safer and be an avenue for employment. Convert the labor office into a national employment center with offices in all the regions. Persons seeking jobs can register online, and employers who recruit from the National Employment Center database will receive tax incentives. It will also compile and maintain a national employment dashboard to track the number of jobs created every year.
Now, Minister for Zongo and Inner Cities Development, Dr. Mustafa Hamid, has weighed into the controversial Sakawa tag attributed to the president and his family relations in and outside the administration, claiming former President Mahama is more Sakawa than President Akufo-Addo. Addressing a press conference in Accra Monday afternoon, Dr. Hamid, who also doubles as the deputy campaign manager of the governing NPP, questioning former President Mahama's justification for playing the tribal card.
We don't want anybody dividing this country on the basis of ethnicity. In any event, if we are talking Sakawa, what is more Sakawa than 3 weeks after you have lost an election to sign off 75% of Ghana's bauxite deposits to your brother? You hand over our resources, bauxite resources, to your brother 3 weeks after you have lost an election. Even that one, nobody has said that it constitutes Sakawa. That is basically stealing Ghana's resources by dead of night, because you have lost, you are on your way out. Somebody comes in, like Akufo-Addo, and we go to the Supreme Court and we retrieve these resources. We leverage it with the Sino-Hydro deal, and that is what is giving the people of Tamale the interchange. That is what is building all these Eastern Corridor roads, the inner city roads in Cape Coast, etc., etc. So you steal our resources and give it to your brother. Somebody comes and takes that resources and is leveraging it for the benefit of the Ghanaian people. You and that person who qualifies to be called Sakawa.
We go to the Upper West region now and work on the 19.4 megawatt peak solar projects at Kalio and Laura are going on steadily and expected to be completed before the end of the year. The projects, when completed, will generate enough energy to power some 32,000 households and increase the geographic spread of power generation in the country. Rafiq Salam joined the Chief Executive Officer of the Water River Authority on a tour of both facilities and reports.
President Akufo-Addo in February card sought for the construction of 17 megawatt peak solar projects at Kalio and Laura, both in the Upper West region. The two projects are being funded by the German Government Development Bank, KfW, at a cost of 22.8 million euros. Ever since the sword was cut, contractors working on the two projects, Electron, have never looked back and has been working to ensure that they do not only meet the deadline but deliver quality work as well. Project manager of Volta River Authority, Engineer Isaac Badu, threw more light on the two solar projects.
Originally, we were doing 4 megawatts here in Laura and 13 megawatts in Kalio. Because of some improvements that we have come up with, the capacity here has increased at no additional cost. So from 4 megawatts, we are doing 6.5 megawatts here. So come end of this month of October, when we commission, we'll be commissioning 6.5 megawatts capacity.
The projects, when completed, will generate enough energy to power some 32,000 households and increase the geographic spread of power generation in the country. Chief Executive Officer of the Volta River Authority, Emmanuel Nchudako, who toured the sites to acquaint himself of the progress of work, was impressed of the work done so far.
My impression is that the project has been well executed from the design phase right up to construction. I think it's a good project. I see there's great attention to detail as far as the operational practices and the construction practices are concerned. So I think all in all, I think I'd give the contractor a lot of congratulations for doing a good job. But as I said, we have slipped, and it's through no fault of anyone. It's just the COVID pandemic that has caused the slippage.
He is hopeful that both projects will be completed before the end of the year 2020.
I have no doubt in my mind that we can hand over. I mean, they are looking at handing over in November. I think that from the little that I've seen and the initial briefing that they gave us, I think we can do a couple of weeks earlier. And so we are going to sit with them, we'll decide with them how we can be more aggressive with the timeline. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do the handover before November.
Though the two projects are yet to be completed, Managing Director of the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, NERCO, Osman Alodiba Ayuba, is already upbeat and speaking about the benefit his output will derive from the peak solar projects.
Once VRA puts it in place, it is for NERCO to now take over as a marketer and now distribute it to the consumers. And so for us, it means a lot for us because, you know, our electricity supply is not very stable in recent times. And so it is another source of power generation for us. So it comes to augment whatever power supply we have to make to the people. And once the chief has said that one has been done at Navrongo and lessons have been learned, and this has become more efficient. What it means is that we may be able to get it at a cheaper cost than we were getting for Navrongo. And so that will also translate into we getting it to the consumers at a lesser cost.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam, Laura.
And that's the news. We've got plenty more when you join us for the review that's coming up in a bit. Some stories catching my attention. We will be telling you a lot more. There's a sad story of a 12-year-old who jumped from the second floor of a building to his death. There's a mother or a woman who's also aborted her 7-month-old pregnancy, and the police is looking into the matter. Some 28 police officers have been dismissed for professional misconduct. All coming up when we do the review shortly. Joseph Akable joins me for the review. Let's also say hello and welcome to NUC's President Isaac J. Hyde. Good morning. He's joining us via Zoom. Isaac?
Good morning, Mama V.
Good to have you join us. Can I see your face? There you are. Are you still in school?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. All right. I was just thinking if your tenure had not ended, and Echo, my producer, assured me that nah, you're still in school. So I was just checking.
Okay.
Joseph, why?
Oh, I've not said anything.
Okay.
It's good to have the NUCS president. I mean, education was one of the sectors highlighted yesterday.
Exactly.
And the good thing about having a NUCS president, you know, some time ago they had lots of issues, but this time around, it's good that we can have someone to call the NUCS president, that we can both be comfortable to engage. So that is good news. We are glad to have him.
Well, listen, I wanted to ask, because I'm asking our viewers what they remember from yesterday's launch, any of the promises. It may be too early, but maybe something stayed on your mind. So, Isaac J. Hyde, anything you remember?
Well, basically, like Akable said, I think the aspects of education really caught my attention. I mean, the issue of student loan once again popped up, which I think is a good thing. I mean, both parties are paying attention to some of the issues on ground, the scrapping of the guarantors. Then also the promise to extend the free SHS to include the private institutions. Of course, there's also the aspect of ensuring that the Wi-Fi extension services, which is ongoing in the senior high schools, these governments, the NDC has also promised that given the mandate, they will equally look at that. There's been aspects of TVET, all receiving mentions. And so generally, I think that these are the things that caught my attention.
Yeah. Joseph?
Yes, I mean, for me, I looked out for the economy because of the COVID issues. They are promising some measures to assist. So they are looking at small-scale enterprises. They will take off personal income tax and corporate tax. They're taking those taxes off just to ensure that they are able to operate as well. And they are also looking at some medium-scale businesses. They are reducing the tax that they are also supposed to pay by way of the income tax for their staff as well. And so that was a way, but I'm not too sure about how it adds up in terms of revenue, because we're already having revenue shortfalls. And so that is an aspect of the manifesto that I looked out for too.
I was thinking about the 4-month maternity. It was refreshing hearing it, because if you saved your annual leave, then that would be 5 months, which is really significant. Because I remember I left my...
They added 7 days for the men. You didn't hear that one. It didn't catch your attention.
But I'm not even done. Women take advantage of it. I mean...
they're giving us some 7 days.
Yeah.
It's too small.
Is it?
Yeah.
Hey, okay, that's refreshing to hear. Okay, guys, let's just go into the newspapers. I have the graphic and the New Crusading Guide, but let's start with you, our guest reviewer, Isaac J. Hyde. You do the Statesman and the Ghanaian Times, so let's hear you review the papers you have. Jay?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Can you go ahead with your papers? Okay, let's start and then we'll bring you in. We understand. Joseph?
Yes, so I'll start from the front page of the Daily Guide. I'm looking out for a story on the NDC program. There's none, but it says Nana elected ECOWAS chairman on the front page.
I see the NDC launches manifesto.
Yeah, that's one line at the top. No photograph, nothing. So I missed that one out. So NDC launches manifesto, one line. Nana elected ECOWAS chairman. And Akufo-Addo has short life like goat skin. That's attributed to John Mahama. And Achim's plan Mahama demo also on the front page. And CRI calls for early school reopening. And Ghanaians won't fall for NDC tricks and lies. That's coming from the NPP. And so...
Okay, you obviously can tell where the paper is coming from, I guess.
The back page has Pay Diana stars $120,000 FIFA orders Club African. And spend cash on new recruits. Mbappe warns employers. And that is on the back page of the Daily Guide.
Let's do the Daily Graphic newspaper. Front page, banner headline. This is what Joseph missed in the Daily Guide. We have it in the graphic. NDC on rescue mission, according to former President Mahama. And yes, there is a picture. You probably see it of the former president and his running mates holding up what they launched yesterday. That's the party's manifesto. Their vision for, the next 4 years, if they're given the mandate. Also, fund management companies say government approves 3.1 billion Ghana cedis bailouts for customers. President Akufo-Addo elected ECOWAS chairman. Congratulations to him. He takes over from the Niger president. We've had former President Jerry John Rawlings, former President Kufuor, and former President Mahama hold that position. So for the next year, we'll see our president as the ECOWAS chair. Hopefully, there are not a lot of issues that he has to deal with on the continent.
The other question, though, is the timing. The timing, because obviously his tenure will move beyond December 2020. So not too sure what that means, but let's see.
Elizabeth Ohene assumes duty as guest editor Thursday. Watch out for the Thursday's paper. Let's see what happens in the you know that she's been in the middle of a lot of I don't want to say controversy.
She's been fighting the CSOs. That's what it is.
I mean, they've been fighting back as well.
Yeah, they've been fighting back. She's been in a heated banter with the CSOs.
In the center spread of the graphic, governments to investigate appropriation of CSIR lands, according to Professor Frimpong Boateng. Polio vaccination begins September 10. Declare September Prostate Awareness Month. That's a call by a medical practitioner and prostate care specialist, Dr. Moses Dogbachi, who suggested that September should be declared Prostate Cancer Awareness Month to sensitize the public, especially men, to the disease. How much do you know of this?
Not very much. I will be very honest. Not very much. I mean.
Yeah, we need. Okay, so let's join the doctor so that we can do more education. On the back page, at Simatim Town Road to receive facelift, and apologies if I didn't pronounce that well. So a sword cutting ceremony has been performed for the construction of a 9.5-kilometer road in this is a place in Efija Kwabre district of the Ashanti region. Death toll in Northeast Flats rise to 6. Also on the back page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let's see if Isaac J. Hyde is ready to review. Okay, Joseph, take over.
So we can do the front page of the New Crusading Guide. It says ECOWAS endorses Akufo-Addo, comes along with his photograph, and filmmakers endorse Akufo-Addo for election 2020. And Mahama inciting ethnic groups against the MPP is coming from Mustafa Hamid. And BPPI condemns Achem Mafia comments. And so all stories relating to the MPP on the front page of the New Crusading Guide. Yeah.
All right, let's bring Jay Hyde in now. Jay, you've got the Ghanaian Times and you have the Statesman as well. Let's hear if you're ready.
Sure, Mama V. I'm going to review the Daily Statesman, and it states that Akufo-Addo chairs ECOWAS, promises to drive regional integration agenda. Then again, there's a story of Mustafa Hamid, where he says that we have superior governance records. NPP challenges NDC. An issues-based campaign is the interest of the NPP. And of course, the last story being demonstration to hit NDC leader over Achim insult.
There's nothing on the manifesto launch yesterday, at least on the front page of that paper?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And then, of course, at the back of the paper, it says that Ghana's hopes for Jeremy Doku dashed by Belgium. And this has to do with sports. Then reconstruction of Nkoko Sports Complex begins.
Okay. Let's move to the Ghanaian Times.
Sure. In the Ghanaian Times, the Ghanaian Times newspaper reads that vote NDC for bright future. Mahama to Ghanaians at manifesto launch. And then it says that 28 police officers dismissed over professional misconduct. We also have NDC manifesto, empty ritual, says the NPP. 100 passenger cars stranded, routes cut off, Bagri Dam spillage. Then on President Akufo-Addo, it says that President Akufo-Addo elected new ECOWAS chairman at the ongoing 57th ECOWAS summit. Basically, this is what it talks on the front page. Then, of course, at the back page, you also have, there's a middle spread.
Yeah, the middle spread has details of those stories on the front page. So let's do the back page of the Times. The story of the spillage of the Bagri Dam, perennial flooding, government to provide 29.6 million Ghana cedis for long-term solution is on the back page of the Ghanaian Times of that paper that Isaac just reviewed. And then the heavy rains cut off more communities in Northeast region. But let's continue with the Chronicle newspaper. Chronicle front page, Mahama fulfilled only 30% of 2012 manifesto according to the NPP. The illegal activities of Western Togoland promoters stop firefighting approach. Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, says government must rather educate the youth on how German Togoland became part of Ghana. Omani Boama on digitization of Ghana's economy. President Akufo-Addo heads ECOWAS. That's how it looks like on the front page of the Chronicle newspaper. They've got some sports stories on the back page. To the New Independent, subject us to accountability for Swampofo throws challenge to Ghanaians. And one of the other things that I remember, Joseph and Isaac, if Isaac's connection is stable now, is General Mosquito's panty story, which essentially was saying, think outside the box.
Do you want to summarize the story for those who may have missed?
I think you're better at that.
No, I'm just asking you. I'm
just saying what you don't remember.
I didn't hear it.
You didn't hear
it. So you want to share the story with us?
I can summarize.
Okay.
They've thought outside the box with the manifesto, essentially.
What has that got to do with the panty?
You have to stay when we do the analysis, the proper analysis of the manifesto right after sport. If you want to hear the panty story, that will come up. But let's do the rest of the stories in the New Independent, at least what's on the front page. Mahama won't apologize for Achim Sakawa Mafia comments, according to Peter Otokono, who also said this to us here on the AM show yesterday. Okay, so this story is actually taking out of our show on Joy News yesterday as he spoke to us. Achim Mafia comments can incite reprisal attacks. That's the Media Foundation for West Africa warning. And then Efutu NDC's Kofi Annan eats humble pie, apologizes to Winneba Police Commander. It looks like that issue has also come to an amicable end with that apology. Okay, Joseph, do you have other papers?
Yes, I can just touch on this one quickly, the front page. It says NDC to reverse loss on Okada and salvaged cars ban and VAT decoupling, among others. President Akufo-Addo elected ECOWAS chairman, and 2020 election will be fought on records, not tribalism, is coming from Dr. Baumia. NDC rehashed old unfulfilled promises into 2020 manifesto, is coming from the MPP, and 6,300 entrepreneurs seek NEIP funding in 5 Northern Belt regions, also on the front page of the Finder newspaper. Can we do some details now?
Yes, but there's this last paper. I find some questions they're raising interesting. It's called the National Forum, Ghana's First Boldness, Firmness, Fairness. Some questions here. 1, do members of parliament scrutinize and understand documents that appear before them to get passed? Is there no way the minority in parliament can stop the majority when they strongly feel that the high numbers is being abused and used contrary to stated law? Do persons claiming repentance from past deeds or with changed minds repeat the very past acts and retain their claim? How well do speakers on teacher education allowances understand the issues involved with the subjects? Very I was going to say useful questions, but...
Good questions.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I wanted to read. Okay, but let's get into the details of some issues.
2 stories, court-related stories. First, Men's Gold.
Yes.
Yeah, so Nana Pia Mensah was arrested long ago. Now the judge is actually raising serious issues because the prosecutors keep coming and saying that they want an adjournment, they want an adjournment, and they want an adjournment. So since last year, the case has not seen any progress. They just go and take an adjournment. And so the judge was raising serious issues about that. The court presided over by Elena Samoa requested to know from the prosecutor why they keep asking for an adjournment at every sitting. ASP Asari then told the court that it was because of the nature of the case, as there are about 16,000 complainants involved. The court then adjourned the matter once again to October 1 instead of the October 8 as was requested by the prosecution.
But if you're not ready, why even start?
I mean, I think that is what all the legal experts have been speaking about for many years. that you investigate, then you arrest and prosecute, not arrest, then now investigate and try to make sense of the case before you prosecute.
And waste everybody's time.
That is what is happening in this particular matter. Then the other issue has to do with the Tardy girls, the two individuals who were believed to have caused their death. We are also told that that has also been adjourned once again due to the absence of the defense lawyer. And so this is what, I mean, these are the things that does not make people too happy. This is a matter that by now we should be able to deal with it quickly. But it's also pending. The presiding judge, Justice Richard A.J. Frimpong, took the decision to adjourn the case because the lawyer for the accused persons, Mark Bosia from the Legal Aid Board, who had been cross-examining the witnesses in the case, was absent because he was isolating after his colleague had tested positive for COVID-19.
Okay, that's a special case.
A special case, yeah.
But I was just thinking how frustrating all these things could be for the judges sitting on these cases, especially when ordinary persons don't understand all these legal processes. So they're looking at the judge and they're thinking, oh, it's the judge.
But we should actually...
There she goes again.
But we should actually get to a level where the gentlemen, they are being represented by the legal aid. And so you have one officer who goes and one person is isolating, or maybe 2-3 people are isolating, and the whole day is wasted. I mean, you have lawyers come from different places, judge coming from home, clerks, registrars all coming, and no work gets done that day.
I get it, but when it comes to COVID-19, I mean, you can't raise too many questions.
That's fair.
So in this case, the judge really doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
It's COVID. It's a global emergency.
Yeah.
Jay Hyde, you're back with us. Apologies there. There was an issue with your connection, but are there stories of interest, anything that you want to highlight?
I wish I could speak on the president's election as the 57th ECOWAS summit.
Okay.
Except that, I mean, my printout is not so clear, so I can't read from here.
Don't worry, we'll help you out.
Sure. So please, if you could go ahead and read the story for me, I'll help.
Okay, so I'm going to take it from the Daily Graphic newspaper, page 16. It says President Akufo-Addo has been elected chairman of the Economic Community of West African States at the 57th summit of the group in Niger yesterday. The president, who was elected unanimously by his peers for a one-year term, takes over from President Muhammadu Yusufu of Niger. He is the 4th Ghanaian president and 34th West African head of state to chair the regional body, which was set up by the Treaty of Lagos in 1975 to foster interstate economic and political cooperation. There's a lot more to the story, but Isaac J. Hyde, I guess this is enough.
Yeah, it is, and it comes at an interesting time, especially when elections are very close. I mean, quite recently, one of the issues that have plagued the West African sub-region has to do with issues of terrorism. And then, of course, recently, the issues of trade. I mean, the significance of Ghana now having to host the Africa Free Trade Organization, it's important. And, I mean, looking at all the issues we've had with foreign traders, especially with our Nigerian brothers recently, and our president getting elected, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you get to think that, I mean, people are really paying attention to some of the efforts of President Akufo-Addo. Then, of course, one of the major issues which featured in this summit has to do with the regional collaborative efforts in tackling COVID. And looking at what the president has done so far, it tells you that people really commend his efforts. We are hoping that within the next 1 year, I mean, his tenure will be very successful. But just like my brother Akable said, the thinking that went into his election, especially when he has barely 100 days to go into an election, could it be that his colleagues are thinking that, I mean, or have reasons to believe that he will definitely win the elections again? Or what then happens should something happen? But I think that Ghanaians should be proud at this stage that, I mean, our president has gotten elected unanimously by his colleagues in the South region.
So I guess the issue that you're raising, and Joseph also touched on, the fact that if he loses the election in December, then he would be, what, 3 months ECOWAS chair, or maybe less?
Well,
but we don't know how this is going to go, so we're just raising it.
That is what makes it interesting. However, it's more or less an endorsement of his leadership credentials. And maybe indirectly, his colleagues are telling us that they are very sure that the president is going to win the elections. And so we wait to see what happens on 7 December.
Fortunately or unfortunately, his colleagues will not be voting in the election. But the other point that Isaac raises that very worth noting is the part relating to this trade feud that has been brewing. And you know, Nigeria have threatened that we're going to take the matter up to ECOWAS, and now it appears they'll be taking it back to our president who will be leading that. But more importantly, I think it's a time that they need to find some continental resolution to it. I don't get what exactly the Ghanaian position is from what we get from our communication and what we put out when we interacted with the Nigerians. You don't get a sense that government is clear in its mind that it is enforcing the law, it's not enforcing it. And so there is one matter that I think the president, now that he's leading ECOWAS, can take it up and they should find some common resolution to ensure that what pertains in other countries are able to also pertain here or the other way around, just to bring an end to this whole issue.
Absolutely. There are some stories in the Ghanaian Times. I did mention right after the AM news about a boy who died after jumping from the second floor of a building. Well, details says residents of Ayiko, which is a suburb of Cape Coast, on Sunday witnessed a ghastly spectacle when a 12-year-old boy jumped from a second floor apartment to his death. The late Alabi took that decision to escape further punishment from his angry father, the father of the deceased, and his wife, which is the boy's stepmother, had been taken into police custody to assist in investigation. Some residents who were outraged about the death of the little boy demanded that the couple be lynched for maltreating the boy, leading to his untimely death. The timely intervention of the police calmed the situation, which at a point was becoming difficult to contain. People around explained that the boy ran out of the room into the outer balcony and jumped out, critically injuring his head. As a result of the injury, the boy was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead few minutes after. So residents have been explaining some of the things. They said the deceased was staying with his father and stepmother, had been suffering frequent beatings from the father. There's more to the story that you can read, but it's just interesting, the reaction from the residents. And I wonder, I don't want to conclude, if they ever drew the attention of authorities before this incident, because they were really angry after the boy jumped. And that's where the story says they wanted to lynch the couple. But I'm asking myself right now, did they ever attempt to alert the authorities about what was going on in that home? You know, in terms of their neighbor and the boy going through all the sufferings that they now claim.
Very, very sad story there.
Yeah, it is.
You had another about abortion?
Yes, this is a mother who already has 5 children, right? And then she got pregnancy in the 7th month, and then the paper says illegally aborted the 7-month-old pregnancy. This happened here in Accra at Atiko. The suspect, name given, I don't want to mention, was bleeding at the time of her arrests. She's been granted police inquiry bail to attend hospital. The Odoko Divisional Police commander, speaking to the Ghanaian Times, said on September 4, a complainant reported to the police that the woman in the area had aborted her pregnancy and dumped the fetus in a public toilet at Atiko. Commander again says the police went to the area, identified this woman as the culprit, was immediately arrested, and upon interrogation admitted committing the offense. It's a criminal offense, so they're going to be dealing with her. And then, yeah, just on the same page 3, 28 police officers dismissed over professional misconduct. I'll leave the details if you're interested in it to check it out on page 28. But it's also always refreshing to know that the police is taking some actions against their own persons, and it gives us confidence. Yeah. So yeah, these are the stories of. Have you picked any story?
Yes, I picked 2 stories.
Okay, all right. Let's do myjoyonline.com just before we wrap up. Can we? Okay, whilst we get ready to bring. Okay, there you have it. Joseph, can you help?
Yes, and so there's a banner story there. It says our scrap law banning importation of salvaged vehicles That is according to Mr. Mahama, the NDC's flag bearer and former president as well. Some other stories here. So you can have a playback of the NDC launching its People's Manifesto, Jobs, Prosperity, and more. And the full document, the NDC's 2020 manifesto ahead of the December 7 post, is also available. And as it happened, NDC launches People's Manifesto 2020, and NDC will extend free senior high school to cover private schools, specifically private schools in underserved areas. And so that is where they are taking that to. Mahama will make corruption a high-risk activities, according to Haruna Idrisu, the minority leader. And NDC will rescue Ghana from the abyss in which it is sinking. That is according to the NDC flag bearer. Yeah.
Joseph is our court correspondent. I'm surprised you didn't touch on the bit about the law school.
Yes.
And how they're opening up, for a lot more people to get access to the professional law education.
Already the debate has started. There, I've seen a write-up where people are saying this is not the solution to the problem. But I always, like I was telling you yesterday, every solution that is proposed, you look at the problem it is seeking to solve. The problem that is seeking to solve now is that people are not getting access to the professional training.
Yes.
And so that is the immediate problem. There are people who are saying that, okay, the faculties are not good enough. You know, there was a recent report that assessed the faculties. There were some faculties that 10 out of the 18 lecturers, they said were not qualified to actually teach law. And so people are saying that the faculty is the problem. But now we know the immediate problem is that people are not getting access to professional education. And so I think it's a good step that they intend to accredit these same faculties. But then the next line will be that you need to strengthen the faculties to ensure that the good education actually takes place there, so that you don't have big lawyers coming out. And so I think it's a bold step, and it appears from what you see from the NDC manifesto that they did a lot of listening, and it's a reflection of the general problems we are all facing. Implementation will be the next hurdle and the specifics of the programs.
Absolutely. Isaac J. Hyde, we have to end the review, but thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully we can do this again.
Most definitely. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Are you guys back in school? Hang on, because we got questions about the tertiary institution.
Not yet. You know, some selected schools were asked to go back, especially those who couldn't join the learning management system to finish their examinations. But generally, schools are yet to reopen at the tertiary level.
Okay. All right. NUC's president, Mr. President, thank you for your time. Enjoyed the morning and the day.
Thank you very much, Mama and Akablé.
Nice. All right. Isaac J. Hyde, right there, the NUC's president. Joseph Akablé, Frimpong. Okay, no, I'm not adding Frimpong. Thank you for your company as always.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah. We'll bring you sports up next, and then when we come back, we're digesting the NDC's manifesto proper here on the show. And then you can remind us of what stood out for you at the launch yesterday. Stay with us. You're watching the AM Show.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to the AM Sports with me, Oreku Wampofo. Now, yesterday was the manifesto reading of opposition party NDC, and their flag bearer, John Mahama, did touch on some sporting issues, stating that when his party comes to power, they would finish up the new Edubiase Stadium as well as upgrading the Winneba Sports College.
We'll establish a sports development fund, and we'll develop a comprehensive national sports policy to outline the vision and strategies for sports development in Ghana. We'll revive and invest in inter-school and colleges games in order to develop talent. For companies that invest in sports, we will facilitate tax exemption and tax relief regimes to motivate private sponsorship and promotion of sports. We'll promote and provide funding for the lesser-known indigenous sports. We'll ensure the successful hosting and organization of the 13th Africa Games to be hosted in Ghana in September 2023. We will continue and complete the new Edubiase Sports Stadium, and we'll establish sports stadia and other recreational facilities in communities and in all the districts. Now, this is an interesting one. We'll use the Sports Development Fund to assist the sports associations to provide and improve remuneration and welfare of local sportsmen and women. This fund will also be utilized to assist teams that qualify for continental competitions. This fund will assist them to be able to go and participate in the competition.
That was flag bearer of NDC, but let's still continue with some more local football news, where the president of the Ghana Football Association, Keto Kraku, is optimistic the return of football would not be from ground zero, as they have learned the rudiments required to organize the FA competitions.
Of the Ghana Football Association have been rolling out initiatives to ensure a successful governance of football in the country. Recently, the GFA came out with a catch them young refereeing policy that would ensure young referees are unearthed at the early stages to imbibe in them the rudiments of refereeing.
We've rolled out quite a number of policies which ultimately will impact positively on the football industry. The last one, I would say, is the Academy Young Refereeing Policy. This is a very big one that has taken a big signal beyond the borders of Ghana, and I hope that when we get our refereeing right as part of our total developmental agenda, we should be making a big statement, and I'm happy about this.
There is still a section of the football community that flag the kind of leadership and the policies being put together by the Ket Okraku-led administration following the cancellation of the 2019-2020 football. Have claimed that the skills required to ensure government ease restriction for contact sport to have allowed the Ghana Premier League to complete was not available from the leadership of the Ghana Football Association. Ket Okraku says the 11 months they've been in office, they learned all the flaws in relation to football administration in the country and would ensure that the return of the game is a success.
I think that we'll be back in a much stronger way. I think that we have a good time to prepare and to bring back the love. I think that as we speak now, like I said at the Congress grounds, we know more than we knew in the early part of our tenure, for which reason we are better placed to deliver a good footballing products to the general public. Okay, I know everybody is expectant. The general public are expectant. Corporate Ghana is expectant. But I think that it's good also to play it safe and to ensure that we bring football in the best and the safest possible way, so that we would continue towards the national, which is the bigger agenda of protecting lives or livelihood. So I know people are expectant, but believe me, will come in a big way.
The football governing body is currently considering the commencement of a new Premier League season in the second week of October. It is, however, unclear if the tentative date schedule is feasible, as the government of Ghana is yet to ease restrictions on contact sport.
NDC will address the canker of nepotism and growing corruption. We will restore the integrity and strengthen independent anti-corruption institutions, and they will be at the forefront of our fight against corruption. We'll strengthen the anti-corruption institutions like TRAJ, YOCO, the Financial Intelligence Center, the Office of Special Prosecutor, and empower them to investigate all cases of corruption swept under the carpet by this administration. They will also be empowered and free to investigate any incidents of corruption under the next NDC administration. We'll introduce legislation to regulate agency representation and the conduct of business practices of multinational companies. This means that if a multinational company wants to do business in Ghana, it's not a crime to have an agent, but they will be compelled to disclose who their agents are for transparency, for purposes of transparency. Update the guidelines for political office holders developed and launched during my administration. The presidency shall not act as a clearinghouse for corrupt appointees. Launch Operation Sting as a major anti-corruption crusade. Be relentless in efforts against corrupt political appointees and public sector workers. Amend the law to enable publication and audit of assets declaration forms by political and public office holders. Codify the conflict of interest situations. Make single source procurements or sole sourcing an exception and not the rule. create a fairer emolument system, and remove the distortions between Article 71 office holders and other public sector employees. Reduce drastically the current size of ministers and their deputies. Reduce the number of political appointees at the presidency and other institutions. Reduce the number of ministries in order to save costs. We'll reverse the decoupling of VAT, 12.5%, NHIL 2.5%, Get Fund 2.5%, which has brought untold hardship onto Ghanaian businesses and households. We will introduce a rural investor incentive package to create meaningful employment opportunities for the youth, especially in rural areas, and investors in rural communities. Under this program, they will be exempted from dividend and capital gains tax. And then B, if they employ up to 50 persons, they will be granted tax exemptions and further incentives on the importation of capital equipment. We'll provide special tax incentives for indigenous value chain industries such as mineral processing, petroleum-based industries, agro-based, pulp and paper industries in order to unlock sustainable job opportunities. Among others, we'll review the Rent Act to provide tax incentives to landlords and real estate investors to reduce the cost of rent advances for residential and commercial purposes. Restructure the Rent Control Office into a Ghana Rent Authority to effectively implement the new Rent Act in the interest of tenants and landlords. We will increase the District Assembly's Common Fund back to 7.5% from the 5% that the current government has put it. This will make sure that enough revenue goes to the district assemblies to function effectively and provide adequately for people in the decentralized districts, and also for people with disabilities. We'll promote local content for local contractors in all sectors of the economy to increase the contribution of Ghanaians to a minimum of 55% of GDP and improve Ghanaian ownership and participation of our economy. Amend the Public Procurement Act to give priority to Ghanaian businesses in the award of contracts financed from public funds. Within a year in office, we will pay the full amount due every victim of the reckless handling of the financial sector cleanup. Conduct a forensic audit on the entire financial sector cleanup exercise, including the Ghana Amalgamated Trust. Set up a financial services authority to regulate the financial service industry, protect consumers, and ensure fair competition in the financial service sector. Ensure a well-tiered financial system to cater for the various segments of the market, such as SMEs. The idea behind this is you don't need every bank to have a capital reserve of 400 million. So we'll create several tiers so that there will be banks that want to lend to small and medium enterprises, and a capital reserve of 100 million will be enough for them.
And that's how it went down yesterday. You're watching your election headquarters. Let's get down and do some analysis. Dr. Ali Dosedo is a political scientist, and he joins us via Zoom alongside Mr. Sam George, Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram. Let's start with you, Mr. Sam George, Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram, who's joining us via Zoom. There you are. Good morning. Thank you for your time this morning, and congratulations on your launch yesterday.
Thank you very much. A very good morning to you and a very good morning to our viewers.
We see that this is well captured in terms of basically all the challenges that we're facing as a country today. I wonder if all the things that you've captured are achievable within the 4-year period?
Nothing is impossible if you have the political will and if you have the desire to execute it. One thing that I can assure you of is that the next NDC administration, led by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, will be focused on delivering on all of our promises. It's a tall order because the sectors are many, because the challenges are many, but I'm confident that we will deliver as much as is practical on the promises and the pledges that we have made yesterday in the People's Manifesto. Because don't forget, yesterday was not our manifesto. It was the People's Manifesto outdoored using the NDC as a vehicle. And we have a responsibility, we have a duty to the people of this country to exercise their mandate and exercise what their desires are in our next term in government. And like you heard the running mate, who will be vice president, God willing, from the 7th of January 2021, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, say, she's practical about the things she says. She's very, very passionate about human development. And so is President Mahama on infrastructure. So I'm confident, extremely confident, that with the will of government, the political will, with the drive of the people on our side, and with the help of God, we will achieve this.
Mr. Sam George, this is an economy that your flag bearer has described as one in tatters. I wonder how he intends, if he gets the nod, to raise the funds to execute these projects.
Let me give you a short history so that you realize that the NDC is a party that doesn't just speak, and that we've done the analysis, we've done the costing of all of this, of all of the things we're speaking about, and we know where we'll get the money. The previous NDC administration under President Rawlings realized that there was a challenge in the educational sector and that we needed huge capital injection to be able to achieve the F-cube and set the basis for a free senior high school and free tertiary education. So what did we see? We saw the institution of the GET Fund. GET Fund that was opposed by President Akufo-Addo then as a member of parliament and his political party. Today in government, he has come to collateralize the GET Fund. But nobody would argue with me that the GET Fund has been the single largest intervention in terms of educational infrastructure in our country. When the NDC realized again that there was a challenge with the energy sector, what did we do? We set up the ESLA Fund. The ESLA Fund was supposed to take care of all the debts in the energy sector and clear them until this government came in and mismanaged it and have extended it by 5 years and collateralized ESLA again. ESLA was on course to take care of the energy sector debts. When we realized that there was a deficit in infrastructure and we needed to have a vehicle to raise funds for infrastructure, what did we do? Under the Mahama administration, we set up the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, GIF. It is GIF that is driving the Ghana Exim Bank. It is GIF that's driving a lot of the infrastructural transformation you saw under the previous administration. So we are not a party that just speaks. We're a party that has a track record of setting up the vehicles for finding the funds for any project we want to undertake. And trust me, we've done the costing of all our projects and we know how we're going to fund them. The big push, for example, what people must understand is that the big push is going to be a fund, a $10 billion fund that's going to be set up over 5 years. It doesn't mean every year it's going to be $2 billion, but on the average, you say $2 billion every year. That's not money that we cannot raise as a government.
Stay with me for a while. Let me bring Dr. Alidu Seidu into this conversation. Dr. Alidu Seidu, if you can hear me, a very good morning to you. We spoke yesterday ahead of the launch. I remember one of the things you said, that the NDC is a socialist party and the manifesto should reflect the ideals of the party. So what do you have to say in terms of that after all that you've heard?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good morning. Amavi, good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Alidu Seidu. Did you get my question?
Amavi, good morning. Please, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. But did you get my question, Dr. Alidu Seidu?
No, please.
Okay. So I was just reminding our viewers of what you said to us yesterday about the NDC being a socialist party and the fact that the manifesto must reflect the ideals of the party. So I'm asking if it did that exactly.
Yeah, I thank you so much for the opportunity. I think for the first time, the NDC has been able to do this better than the way they used to do it in the past. And this manifesto actually is rooted and underpinned by the social democratic philosophy of not only the NDC, but as it is globally acclaimed. It is largely pro-poor. There's an element of hope in terms of achieving social justice in resource distribution and development programming. It is kind of people-owned. People's thoughts have reflected in that document, and it is meant to enhance to enhance the welfare and the well-being of the masses broadly. So I think for the first time, I see the NDC kind of reconnecting more to their support base, reconnecting more to the general populace, and kind of seeking a balance in terms of distribution of resources from the top to the bigger grassroots population. So honestly speaking, most of the interventions and projects promised in this manifesto actually resonates clearly with the needs of the broader masses and kind of give hope to people who have been hopeless over the years simply because they believe that there hasn't been enough trickle down of broader national cake and resource distribution. So to some extent, most of the promises that were captured last night actually resonates with the dominant ideology of the party. But moving forward, I'm just thinking of how they're going to implement it, because it's one thing having a very nice written document that actually captures the needs, the wishes, and the aspirations of the people. And there is another implementing them, especially the exigencies that comes with being in government. It's quite different from the reality when you are in opposition.
Okay, so I was just going to ask about realistically implementing all these beautiful things that they've outlined, that almost everybody can identify something, in there. Can they execute this within a 4-year period?
So what I was expecting to see was at least creating a point of departure from other manifestos we have seen in the Fourth Republic by adding a little bit of source of funding for most of the top-ranked, top-notch promises that they spelled out last night. So, for example, if we are going to do, they've done for some of the promises, but not all of them. But I was thinking the major ones should have come with a little bit of source of funding, and then maybe the number of jobs that is going to create or how it's going to boost the economy. If they had added that, it would have been the most fantastic policy document we'll have had in the Fourth Republic. But moving forward, Mama V, you see, manifestos are intentions. Government intentions and aspirations that government want to achieve for the people. Sometimes when you come to power and when you are doing this, most often than not, you cannot foretell what will happen when you are in government. So political parties may come to power, and then the current realities on the ground may not actually be enabling enough for them to achieve some of the promises that they have made. So for example, if you look at COVID has actually thrown a lot of manifestos off gear across the world because people never anticipated that such a thing might happen. So there may be kind of exigencies that the MDC will not be able to foretell, and that will affect the level at which they can implement. But if you look at the level of zeal, the kind of enthusiasm that went to it, but also for the very important fact that they actually captured the essence of every manifesto. It is a contract between the people and then the political party. And when you are entering into a contractual agreement, there is a lot at stake, including your integrity, including the people's ability to believe in your ability to execute what you are promising. So the NDC is cognizant of this fact and have actually put their life on the line, that if Ghanaians give us the opportunity, we are definitely going to execute this kind of contract. And their track record over the past years that they have been in government can attest to some of these things. So I believe that barring any unforeseen eventualities that may throw them off gear, they are really committed to coming to power and really committed to executing this project so that people can repose confidence back to them and then give the trust that they deserve as a serious political party in this country.
Okay, I've got Sam George with us, but I want to ask you, Dr. Ali Doseidu, what stood out for you in terms of the many things that you heard yesterday? What do you remember? Because I'm told that ahead of the polls, at least from the manifestos of the two parties, we should, on top of our heads, as a people, as ordinary people, remember some of the things. That's when you know that your message is actually going down. So what do you remember about yesterday's launch?
So I remember the big infrastructure push.
Okay.
I remember legalizing Okada, legalizing and regulating Okada. I remember extending maternity leave from 3 to 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the whole concept of bringing social justice and equity to the Ghanaian population. I remember reversing the, expanding and making better the free senior high by including private secondary schools into the main domain.
Mm-hmm.
I remember creating and protecting rent payers by changing the Ghana Rent Control into a Ghana Rent Authority so that they can enforce and then provide and protect for tenants, but also make life meaningful for people who own properties. And there are quite a lot of them. I think this time, unlike in 2016, I can rehearse at least up to 10 or more of the NDC's manifesto. Okay. I couldn't have done that in 2016.
Which is very impressive. I'll come back to you and see if you can readily do a little comparison. I know it's very, this just happened last night, but a quick comparison between the MPP's manifesto and this one. But let's talk to Sam George whilst you gather your thoughts on this one. Mr. Sam George, it's good that we can, on top of our heads, remember some of the things that you put in your manifesto, but that's because you've essentially just outlined, like we talked about, the challenges that we're all facing, individuals are facing in the different areas. We've talked about how realistic this would be, but how do you, within your constituency, I wonder how your people would directly benefit from this manifesto. How?
Well, Mama B, I'm smiling because listening to Dr. Ali Duseidu, it tells me that we have done a good job. Many people, one of the problems we had in 2016 was people could not identify with the manifesto. They couldn't pick key issues out of the manifesto. It appeared to be too technical and not in line with our social democratic tendencies. That was one thing we sought to fix this year, and I think we've achieved it. I could see the ease with which the policies were rolling off the tongue of Dr. Ali Duseidu, and I believe that it's the same with almost every Ghanaian. There's several, and one of the ones Dr. Ali Duseidu most likely would have come to was the fact that even fathers are going to get 7 days paternity leave. That's a new one that people do not know. It's a very good time that as a father, as a fresh father, you get some 7 days to bond with your new baby. That's a very good one that we added. But you see, you asked me a specific question about how the people in my constituency are going to benefit from the manifesto. I have tertiary students in my constituency, tertiary students whose parents' livelihoods have been affected by COVID and the pandemic. One of the policies that we rolled out yesterday was the fact that we're going to give a 50% rebate on tuition fees, on the school fees for all tertiary students in the 2020-2021 academic year. So when the universities open, 50% of the school fees of all students, including my constituents, are going to be taken care of. Again, when you look at the HR gap analysis that we did, that has in fact informed our minimum 250,000 jobs a year policy. I could give you some breakdowns. And you see, Doc, I agree with you that people will want to see specifics. Okay, we have the specifics. All of those could not have found expression in the manifesto. But off the top of my head, I mean, I could give you a typical example. We did an HR gap analysis of the public sector and the private sector. So in the public sector, for example, the Ghana Police Service, we expect that to bring us close to the UN prescribed police to citizen ratio, we need to employ 35,020 new policemen. This is going to come at an additional cost of 805,460,000. We believe that in the Ghana Educational Service, we need to recruit about 98,650 more teachers. And this is going to come at an increased cost of 1,775,700,000. I can go on and on in the Ghana Health Service, Fire Service, Immigration, Prison, Local Government Service, the Forestry Commission, the Environmental Health Inspection Directorate.
So did you also include exactly where the money was going to come from for this specific project?
We have the sources of funding also. By reducing the number of ministers by 40, we're going to be making savings of 63,424,000 Ghana cedis. By reducing the number of presidential staffers by 200, we're going to be making savings of 186,400,000 Ghana cedis. By introducing what we call the security service fees and charges, we're going to be raising 10 million Ghana cedis. By revising, by revising the tax waiver regime to make savings, we're going to be saving 460 million Ghana cedis. Under the e-proceeds that are going to come from the GRA Management Revenue Monitoring Project that we're going to undertake, it's going to provide us 3 billion Ghana cedis. Other government expenditure realignments that we're going to be doing is going to save us 2,386,400,000. So in total, we have identified where we're going to be making savings to the tune of 7,251,224,000. The increased expenditure that we are looking to do by way of recruitment in the public sector, which is going to create 367,838 jobs, is going to cost us 6,909,066,000 Ghana cedis. So you realize that we actually made about 300 million Ghana cedis more savings in our projections. Then when you go to the private sector, I was just going to go to, that was just the public sector. If you go to the private sector, for example.
Wrap it up on that quickly for me, and then I'll bring Evans Mensah into this conversation.
Sure. In the private sector, for example, we're looking to support the private sector to create 255,100 more jobs. In infrastructure and construction alone, we're looking at 90,000 new jobs that will come up by way of the big push that is going to be undertaken by government. When the big push starts, when you have the dualization of the Accra-Kumasi Techiman Road, when you have the dualization of the Aflao Tema through Ningo Prampram all the way to Aflao Road, and Tema through Ningo Prampram again to Akosombo, the dualization of these two roads alone is going to create jobs. The completion of the Eastern Corridor roads, the building of the new universities, all the projects under the big push are going to create jobs in the private sector. So, and these private sector jobs are going to be done by Ghanaians. And that's how we're going to create the big push, create at least a minimum of 250,000 jobs every year and put the country back to work.
Let's bring Evans Mensah, who's the head of our political desk, into this conversation, who has also been tracking the party's manifesto. I know that this will be well digested on Wednesday. But Evans, good morning to you. We had a conversation ahead of the launch yesterday. So let me ask, on the face of it, what stood out for you from yesterday's launch?
One of the key things that stood out for me was the fact that it appeared very obviously that the NDC had done some work trying to put in promises that they believe matches with the people's expectations and needs. And it explains why one of the key concerns I had raised was, it's taking too long for the manifesto to come. Why? Because the document was presented as a finished copy to the flag bearer almost 2 months ago. But I guess the party sort of, and I'm speaking to my civil society friends, they say to me that the party met them when they made suggestions to them. The party said, well, we had not thought about some ideas the way the civil society guys had put it forward. And so they were going to re-strategize and rephrase some of the promises. And you saw it in there. The biggest thing for me was, it was almost as if every problem that this country has, the NDC somehow had figured it out, and they crafted a particular policy to address that particular problem. To the extent of some of the promises that you can describe as recently emerging or had become topical recently. the NDC has framed solutions for it. One example, the lynching of the witches, which we've seen in the last 2 months or so, with a recent one, down south and one up north, which led to the death of the old woman. The NDC had a solution, a policy proposal for it, including empowering the welfare system to build care homes for the aged. And you could see, for example, that in that case, the party has thought, this came up recently. As at the time when the party manifesto was presented to John Mahama almost 2 months ago as a complete document, that wasn't such a topical issue for people to discuss. But post that submission, that has become topical, and the party has talked about a policy position for it. That's just one example to tell you that every aspect of our national conversation that people had touched on, they had introduced. But for me, if you're looking at the big push that Sam George has talked about, 10 billion, I'm sure the question has been raised about that. Probably is the biggest line item quantified and valued in the manifesto. We had for the first time what they were going to use the 10 billion for, specifics. One of the things that struck me was that we're going to spend part of the money on 5G technology. That was a big one, because if you look at where the world is going, the 5G technology that the West is trying to push for, and NDC says they're going to use 5 billion for. The key question always that comes up is 10 billion. Where are you going to get the money from, and how much of that will add to your debt stock, and will they make your debt sustainable going into the future? Those are big questions that we'll begin to interrogate quite closely. There are a few more to go through, because there's a lot, and we began counting just a sheer number of promises that were made yesterday. Some interesting trends are beginning to emerge. There's a lot of promises made yesterday. If you compare to the 2016 manifesto, which they lost with, and the 2012 manifesto, we're beginning to see a trend. In the next few hours, myself and my colleagues will finish it, and that will begin to give us a sense of where the party wants to take, if they win, where they want to take this country going forward.
I will give you the time to do that, but let's just go back a little bit, because you did a very fine analysis of the NPP's 2016 and the 2020 manifesto. We seem to have a lot more in this NDC than the NPP's 2020, correct?
Absolutely more. NPPs had 143 promises compared to 510 when they won the elections, when they were in opposition coming into government. As of the last count, we had gone way past 143 in the NDC manifesto just launched yesterday. But that is important. Something that is beginning to emerge for me, comparing the manifestos, even the NDC's manifesto, is when you are in opposition, it is pretty easy to make promises, right? When you're in opposition, because you're about to come into government. When you are in government, and what I saw with the NDC's manifesto, when you're in government, you get one reality check. Two, because you've implemented policies for 4 years, you also get a sense of you want to consolidate more than simply introduce more promises, because you're doing stuff already in the last 4 years. So you get a sense from the incumbents, when they want to regain power, that they are less inclined to be voluminous in promises, more inclined to sort of sustain and consolidate what they believe they're doing, which again is something that I'm seeing in the NDC manifesto. But they've told us that this is reflective of what people had told them, and you see that actually in it. But the key question for me is, where do you draw the line between being populist, as in simply putting in promises because people told you so, and being actually practical, putting in, yes, I heard you gave me that, as something that you want us to do, but I'm putting in this because I can do it, it is feasible, I can find the money to do it, and it's actually it's in the larger interest of the country, the public's ultimate interest, not because of a small minority's concern. And that, I guess, is one of the things that we'll begin to interrogate a bit more to see feasibility, practicability, financing, cost, all these questions. And I like something that was said by John Mahama and also by Fusampofu yesterday. They say, we are putting this document out there and we are actually inviting you to hold us to strict proof with what we had put out. That is a good challenge to throw out. It is obviously because they believe they've done a good groundwork. Well, we'll begin to interrogate it a bit more to see. And I've seen that they're pretty willing to engage on this, which again is a good thing, because if you put a document and you're not willing to engage, then you can't sell. You can't convince people beyond the ceremony yesterday.
Yeah. Dr. Leader Saidu, this is getting even more interesting, because if you look at President Akufo-Addo, you look at former President John Mahama, you can't say that, oh, I haven't been in government before. These are two people who have been there. One is still there, one has been there. So whoever comes cannot make excuses for what they put as their vision in the manifesto.
Yeah, I think that is the more reason why we say the 2020 election is unique, in the sense that it's going to be one match on track records. And we're going to do a kind of comparative analysis of the track record of the NDC, specifically under the leadership of John Dramani Mahama, and then of the MPP under the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So I think it's going to be that element of track record. But when you are tracking records, what is more important is the element of integrity and the element of the leadership, and then the party at large being able to live up to the campaign promises that they have made in the past. And you are able to track that based on what they have been able to do and what they have not been able to do, given the current circumstances in which they were supposed to do it. The circumstance is very important. If you compare the two, I think Evans has made a very important point that I was going to make about the issue of continuity. Manifesto that is in continuity, a manifesto that seeks to bring back a political party into government. The two cannot be the same, largely because once you are in government, there is a lot that you have already achieved, like everyone said, and there's also the reality check in there compared to when you're in opposition. But the fact is that NDC has also been in government. They just lost power just the last couple of 4 years. So that element of reality check is also on them. The difference has to do with the fact that the methodology that the NDC used to arrive at this manifesto is actually one of the reasons why we are having that element of voluminous document, like Evans has mentioned, because the fact is that they did not just sit in a car and assume what the people want. They actually dialogue with the people. And in policy formulation process, the element of interest aggregation is very important, because every individual has an interest that they want you to meet. The political system is not that large enough to be able to absorb all the specific individual interests. So that is why the element of interest aggregation is very key. You are able to pick the individual interests and see how you can put them together in a kind of holistic nature that addresses one particular issue, but a lot of issues can be subsumed under them. So if you pick, for example, the big push on infrastructure, it's a kind of an aggregated promise that is able, when you disaggregate them, it is able to meet a lot of interests. It has to do with revenue generation, it has to do with job creation, it has to do with infrastructure development, it has to do with both soft and hard. So it's a kind of holistic package. So when you begin to look at it from that perspective, you see that interest aggregation is very key. If you are not able to aggregate interests, you are going to end up having so many promises, and that may have the likely impact of you not being able to meet them as you have stated them. One of the key challenges that we've always encountered when we go around doing research about this government is the fact that they made a lot of promises in 2016 that they have not been able to achieve them. So when you go and tell somebody, I will do this for you, and you've not been able to do them, you don't have the moral right to go back to them and say you are going to do something else, because they will definitely hold you to account based on your performance on the last bit. The other difference has to do with the fact that I have seen that this manifesto is much rooted in the social democratic philosophy of the NDC. You can actually contextualize most of the promises that they have made back to the social democratic philosophy. And it is very important because, you see, your political ideology, which sometimes we don't take seriously here, defines who you are as a political party. It defines the kind of policies you formulate. It also defines the kind of policies that you implement when you are in government. Because definitely, once you are in opposition, the way you perceive things, your worldview about issues and problems is going to differ when you come to government. So it is in the context of this, your philosophy is the guiding principle. Which one should I do? Which one shouldn't I do? Based on the resources that I have, but based on the peculiarity of my philosophy as a political party. I have seen the NDC going back to their roots compared to most of the promises that you have in the 2020 manifesto of the MPP. So in the boycott, they all speak to the issues of Ghanaians, and it is left for we Ghanaians to actually do a serious interrogation of the promises that are made. And then we'll be able to tell those which are feasible and those which look populist just to win political power.
Okay, so
Mama, if you don't mind, and a quick point just to add to what Dr. Levi just said there about the NDC appealing to its base. The NDC is a mass grassroots party. And so when you hear the Okada promise appeals to that mass. And I have analyzed and said that this year, the NDC must try to appeal to that base that John Mahama got disconnected from in 2016. And the history of the NDC candidate, in pure electoral outcomes terms, it appeared to be the candidate who was most disconnected from his base. So if you put it on Okada promise, where your group mass base is, you are appealing to that base. But that Okada promise also raises a second question that Dr. Ali Ducedo had talked about. And again, track record, credibility. In 2012, under John Mahama's leadership, and of course, then later on became the president after the fortunate demise of Mills, the NDC introduced an ally that banned the use of motorcycles for commercial purposes, right? I mean, so several years on, he wants to now lift that ban that he himself introduced. That then raises questions, right? You put in the airline that first made it impossible legally for them to do the business of commercializing motorcycles. You say now you are removing that particular ban, but having seen the NDC own it to say that, well, this is why we are changing our perspective. That will be a key point to interrogate the NDC on. And I'm looking forward to Sanjay's explanation on this, because that raises questions about credibility in making the promise. Are you simply being populist because you're now wanting to come back to government? Because own it. This is your own doing. Why?
It's not a problem. I'll handle this.
So please go ahead, Mr. Go ahead, Sanjay.
Like that.
All right. So look, when you say it's being populist, it's one way to look at it. When you say it's addressing a real problem, don't forget this manifesto. It's the people's manifesto. It's the aspirations of the people. When the flag bearer traveled across the country and met with ordinary Ghanaians, look, we have 800,000 plus Okada riders in our country who are engaged in commercial motorcycle riding. He met with the various unions. They made a compelling case why he, if he becomes president again, must reverse a decision that he took on the basis of empirical evidence. What more do you want? I mean, you want a listening government, don't you? As journalists, you will want a government where when you put empirical evidence before them, they will be responsive to the evidence you put before them and react to same. I'll give you a typical example. People in the media, and I believe Evans himself, celebrated the NPP government, the current NPP government, when they finally, after all the agitation by people like myself and industry players, said, look, the increase in the CST tax from 6% to 9% was not a well thought through policy. Who did the increase? Was it not the NPP administration? In the face of COVID, and after all the arguments we had made, what did they do in the media budget? They've dropped it from 9% to 5%. So that is responding to empirical evidence. So if the NDC, yes, in 2012, and we've not run away from it, in 2012, on the face of what existed, said, look, let's ban the use of Okada or motorcycles for commercial purposes because of the risk involved. Now we have gone out, the people have come to us, we have realized that, look, this takes a huge chunk of our unemployment problem off our hands as government and actually can be a productive means of providing employment for able-bodied young men in our country. We've looked at jurisdictions where it has been done and how has it been done. And that's why we're not just saying we're going to legalize it. We're saying we're going to regulate it. You see, a populist agenda or a populist manifesto would have said, we're going to legalize Okada. But a realistic, people-centered manifesto is what we have put out. We said we will legalize it and regulate it. So then you're going to have insurance policies. There was no insurance policy before we banned the use of it for motorcycles for commercial use. But now we are saying we're going to put in an insurance policy. We're saying we're going to do proper training of the riders. We're going to see, and one thing I know under the big push agenda is that you're going to see, we're going to begin to, in certain areas, put in dedicated motorcycle lanes. It will not be possible to do motorcycle lanes on all our roads. But in certain areas, you will see dedicated motorcycle lanes like you see in other countries. Like if you go into the Francophone countries, on the major highways, you have dedicated motorcycle lanes where motorcycles use. And so this is a whole gamut where we're saying, look, we're going to do regulation before we, alongside the legalization. And so you realize that this is a reflection of consultation with the people who really matter. Again, one other area where we've done consultation, which is evident, is in our promise to expand legal education, the reach of legal education, professional legal education. You would realize that this is in response to real demands that have been made by the
I'm sure Mama V is smiling to this one.
I am, and I just want to ask him. I just want to ask him because, Sam George, you are in Parliament. We've seen, you know, this whole conversation come up strongly in Parliament. Why didn't you do what you say you're going to do? Why didn't all these things come up in Parliament? Why didn't we hear it?
We don't have majority in Parliament, Mama V. Let's remember that. We don't control government business in Parliament. And the way Parliament is structured, such amendments will have to come from government, from the Attorney General. And you've heard major leading stakeholders in this government make the point that it will not happen. It is not something they want to support the status quo. We are saying that when hopefully we come into government on the 7th of January 2021 with a parliamentary majority, we will put in place the legislative framework that will decentralize professional legal education and put it in all the law faculties. And look, there have been several engagements that we as a minority have held with law students. After the law students demonstrated and they were brutalized by the Akufo-Addo administration, and Ghanaian law students had to seek refuge in the Canadian embassy. I'm sure you remember this incident. We as a minority held consultations with them. From our consultation, the discussion came out. Why don't you have the American system, for example, where all the legal faculties are accredited to be able to do the professional exam. And then when you finish, you sit a general bar exam. Okay, that's one way to go. And that's what we're saying that, look, this is in response to the cry and needs of the people. And like Evans pointed out, yes, a manifesto is supposed to be like the Constitution. It's supposed to be, a manifesto is a living document. It's a document that must respond to the needs of people. And so, yes, you realize that post, and I'm not going to run away from it, post the official presentation about 2 months ago of the finalized work by the Manifesto Committee, issues have come up in the national discourse. And in that 2-month period, I mean, we have had the opportunity to add on fresh issues that will reflect the current trends and demands and desires of the Ghanaian people. And that didn't stop. Nobody was stopped from doing that. And one thing that Evan spoke about, which is another big push, which is in the infrastructural sector, for which I find myself as a spokesperson for the Manifesto Committee on, is the 5G technology. And that is one area where we can give you an example of how the infrastructure we are going to be building will pay for itself. When you build the 5G technology, when you roll out 5G technology is a huge game changer in the world affairs, because the Internet of Things takes off immediately. The kind of OTTs that run on 5G are mind-blowing. And that's why even in the West, they're competing on how to roll out 5G technology. We believe that government must own 5G technology, and that will allow for Ghanaian enterprises to play in that space. So if government owns the 5G technology as an asset, and all the industry players plug in on the network that is owned and built and developed by government, because it is in the interest of national security for governments to own that infrastructure. and not for any one entity to own that infrastructure. When we build the 5G technology, we create a level playing field for everybody, foreign, Ghanaian interest that wants to play in the telecom sector, those who want to offer over-the-top services in the IT sector. It's going to open a whole new gamut of job opportunities for Ghanaians. But once we build that, what you should bear in mind is even if you spent $1 billion or $2 billion in rolling out that infrastructure, that is infrastructure that pays for itself. One typical example of such innovative expenditure is the Akwabo gas plant. Akwabo gas plant is going to finish paying for itself in about another 2 years. $1.2 billion worth of investment because the plant generates revenue. That's the difference between the NDC's model and the NPP's model. Where under the NPP, you're seeing borrowing for things like salaries and wages of public sector workers. And the productivity from the public sector is not meeting or generating the revenue to be able to even service the loan, not to talk about paying the interest on those loans. But the NDC is looking at putting in monies into infrastructure that will pay for themselves. When you build roads, for example, when you completely dualize the Accra Kumasi Techiman Road, or you dualize the Accra Cape Coast stretch, or you put in a railway line from Tema through Accra, through Cape Coast, all the way to Takoradi, as part of our master plan, railway master plan, which was started in 2014, then you realize that this is infrastructure that will pay for itself because the increased volume of traffic. And that's why we're saying that when we do this dualization of the road and complete the Eastern Corridor Road and start the Western Corridor Road, we're going to begin to build a new inland port at Bupe. So this is an integrated policy. And one last thing, Mama V, is that Evans raises the point that parties in opposition seem to make a lot of promises. Yes, we're in opposition, but what we see ourselves is not just as an opposition party, we see ourselves as a government in waiting. We see ourselves as a government in transition, a 4-year transition. We were in government, we came into a transition for 4 years, and we're coming back to government. And so we are minded by several of the policies that we are promising to implement. You will realize that in the Big Push agenda, for example, many of the things we say we want to do are continuations of projects that started under the NDC of John Dramani Mahama. So you'll see that it is a continuation of our projects and policies that were undertaken under the Mahama administration from 2013 to 2016. Yes, there are new policy interventions also that have been made, but we are not just your typical opposition party. We're government in waiting, we're government in transition.
I like where you've positioned yourself as a government in waiting and government in transition. Dr. Alidu Seidu, perhaps, the last angle to this conversation, now that the NDC's manifesto is out, the MPP's manifesto is out, what's your expectation of us and the people? What should we do with these two documents?
I think the commissioning of outdooring of these two reports actually sets the entire election in motion, and it affords well-meaning Ghanaians the opportunity to be able to compare the policies of the NDC and the policies of the MPP going into December, but also be mindful and guided by past promises and the level or extent to which they have been delivered. One thing I realize in my study of governance across the world is the fact that when leaders leave government, and allow other people to rule, they reflect on the mistakes that they have made. They reflect on things that they should have been able to do. But the sad thing is that they do not have the opportunity to come back to correct those things.
Okay, so when they get the opportunity to come back, do they deliver?
They usually don't have. So, for example, former John Wallace is done. There's a lot of regrets that he might have reflected over. Former President Kufuor is done. There's a lot of things he wish he could have done better, but the constitution will not allow him. It's only, I think, former President John Dramani Mahama who can actually reflect and see a lot of gaps and a lot of things that he should have done, which he wasn't able to do. And I think that reflection is captured in the kind of manifesto that the NDC have been able to do. A lot of things that they wish they would have done, things that they wish they could have continued. Sitting back for 4 years and see other people governing can actually inspire you a lot, bring you a lot of nostalgic feelings. And once you are given the opportunity, I think he can do far better than what he did in 2016.
Okay.
But that still boils down to the fact that Ghanaians will have to interrogate the documents both the NDC and the NPP are put up there, look at their track record, and be able to pose confidence and trust based on the track records and what they are promising. So I think this sets the entire tone for an issue-based campaigning, and the floating voter, rational voters, the media, civil society will definitely join in seriously interrogating these documents and inform Ghanaians in a more better way so that they can make an informed decision moving forward.
Evans Mensah, I know that as head of the political desk, we're not just going to take these documents and leave it there. You helped us appreciate what was in the NPP's manifesto. What are we going to do with this one?
Well, we're going to do a lot. There's a lot to have fun with the NDC manifesto. I'm looking forward to this tonight and then tomorrow, particularly tomorrow when we set the day apart to sort of unpack the entire document. And there's something that I'm telling you said, I mean, the thing about you've been in government before, you get someone to put you to come back. I say in communicating your comeback, you need to own your mistakes, if there were any. Because you see, without owning it, it appears as if you are ignoring it. You thought, you think we didn't know that you made mistakes. And I've seen Sam George, for example, now take on this Okada one example that I put forward. There will be others. That when you begin to go to the manifesto and compare to the 4 years of John Mahama, you would actually see a setting conflict, right? That the NDC, and from purely strategic point of view, the NDC should be owning up to these now by themselves before you push it to them. Because if you allow us to go and look at it and find them and push it, it appears as if you are hiding it. You are hoping we won't see. And in communicating, that for me will be important. In the sincerity, the honesty with which you approach your humanity. Because no human being is perfect. And there was a reason why John Mahama lost by almost 1 million votes historically. And there's a reason why he wants to come back. And now, to be fair to him, I've heard him before on platforms say, well, I made mistakes and I've learned my lessons. This is his opportunity to put some flesh on that bone, be more specific, own it, and move forward. Because people, we all know we're human and we are fallible. But when you don't approach it like that in terms of owning it, of course, then you open yourself up to opposition members who are going to look for it and say, you see, this person is being dishonest with you. That for me is going to be key in the way Sam George and others communicate the contents of this manifesto going forward, knowing that this is going to be track record analysis done very rigorously. And in my last count, there are at least 3 civil society groups doing great work on manifestos. And now we have a media organization like Joy FM and Multimedia dedicating a whole show for manifesto analysis. CDD, Imani, Send Ghana, and ourselves. Powerful entities. And so you would just anticipate that this is going to be thoroughly scrutinized and digested. Every bit is going to be analyzed, and just as we did for the MPP when they launched theirs. And they had to come and face some of the hard critique. And we're expecting that to happen going forward. And I just hope Sam George and others are ready for this grueling grill that is going to begin starting tonight.
When you say it like that, it sounds scary.
We're more than poised. we're more than poised. More than poised. Ready to take this on. Look, and you see, the ease with which we will defend this is because this is reflected. There is no part of the manifesto that you would take that doesn't address a real issue of a sector of Ghanaians. And so this is about ordinary Ghanaians, and this is what they want. This is. I mean, it's so easy that I'm ready to take on anybody at any time to explain the policies in there, because at the end of the day, they address the real needs. Is it about cocoa farmers and the fact that we have done this before, we have given them free fertilizer in the past, and now we are saying this government has come, is making them pay for it, and we are saying, look, we will come back and reintroduce free fertilizer? Or is it the fact that we are saying that we want to make TVET free at both secondary and tertiary education levels? These are the real questions that we must be asking ourselves. And for me, I'm excited about this. I'm willing to engage. Evans anytime. And I'm hopeful that by the time we're done engaging, the next Joy FM poll, Evans Mensah will vote for John Mahama.
Okay, this sounds as very simple as the General Mosquito's panty story. Gentlemen, I thank you for your time this morning. And, we will keep the discussion going. See you later at 9 p.m. Evans Mensah. Dr. Alidu Seidu, thank you very much for your time as always. Sam George, we're grateful.
Thank you.
And that's our conversation on the NDC's manifesto. I hope that you did enjoy that. We've got voters' voice still on your election headquarters. What's that one thing in your community you want to see changed that will push you to vote in the 2020 polls? We hit the Volta region next.
I've been in Pando for the past 10 years. Looking at Pando, when they come out, the parliamentary candidates, when they come out, whatever thing that they are going to say is what I'm going to listen to and then see if it is necessary for me to vote for them. That is where I'll go vote for them. But if they don't come out with anything that will bring development to Pando, I am not sure I'm going to vote for them. Anyone that will come with any developmental issues that concerns Pando, I'll vote for, because Pando has been an old municipality. It has been there for long. Pando has been there. Peki is out of Pando, Hohwe, all over to Raura, and Pando is still the same. So I need somebody who will come out with a great change, somebody who wants Pando to have a different face.
Fifi mi a lolo asichala ore. Enu ama esesana mi. Dowe ki evade bi apo asichacha wo to is down. Omo le nu play na mi o. Eye no play the school view mi wana supply o that is school view ji. Tanu awo to chi mi agbon. Ene le first chaga awo to vo. Ata mi asi me lorun wo yi. Enu ama esesana mi. Ta ya ta ko da dara kura je mele nyanyi duro jo. No fofu mi afonu la sieme no yenu video ko na mi chere no ko na mi chere ni mi ko ni le tikuire mi no le tikukure no nye ga video wa no khedi wa voy no ko pele miaun le te miaun eta me jiru ani si no o sigbeku na mi re jila jomi ete mi adako e gele fi o ma adako fifi e me gba mi to gba soso gba yi o acho ebu ayi nye gsegun ade nye gama ko chobu ejije kumta me yiyo me gagi ma ko pele ndu to ke fi mejibe ma po embere ma po be oje nane gomene mi la si eme be afodi ko o tu ine mi pa dopo kakeyin meje eza yi ke to mo vo ele fude ne mi no ta flat na do le mi atofi aro afodi mi atofi ele mi cho moto ne mi ya fe me tato to ke fi meji ma pa fe ko dada ne vare no jagba to mo de si ade no fu ko ne mi je sa fe ko dawe ne do ke atande jipo ne mi be mi atando ava dako gako pere ntere o le carry there street like there ni jibe carry ere mega se moto ko na ke to me fo le khoye we tu do de viviti we le fimi bon ya carry giane wu na wo menye moto fe carry do le koko ya gaba no de pro no so iko na gbero me cha fo le fimi fife afeye yi o le fimi che no so fimi che no va de fimi we che jo cho pon na je jijo o che jo go record dada covid gala fe vade ona mi va tre line me vu keke to ba do fi mi le fun na oji po che gade ke mele vava tare no jawa gba ne to pe kene chere no do re mi ne mi zo no na mi de eji ajo mi be government don se mi le mi apa si cha me je mi ten wa vote ko pe mi afa MCK pele vide la gbagba jem to mo ko na me mo ke to fe tais yo meten di o moto meten di o fradia treat alo lo ne o be to le de fifi de mo pa the government ni don say be done yiji be po change o change igba to akibe po ejebe o le ndana finye le within period kilemela TSS review la o le ndu free egle ko close le me nusi anu le me adunu bi o takpi o le ndu free kakedu mi kaka ko be covid galare no ji viere na mi ibi ko chasi call me afe dowe ni doani ni o si gbe nana la kai 4 ayi ma tutu ende ke ma gbere won life e kale me pon jeje ribo le nana pri MC o pe doc yo wona mi o le pando me pon gbo kaka ncho ha o nko gbe yi ki e kabara light le kologu de si ade me kona de si ade me o de kadina mi fifi mi wu gantowe tai bobu mana mi ine dede tai e pon nko gbe yi blibo le nana o poporo kileme ruado.
We held with the translation. It just hits a different chord when you can understand the language direct. But that's the voter's voice from Pando. Dr. Kwesi Amachibo, I think is a political scientist with the KNUST. He joins us via Zoom. Good morning to you. Dr. Amachibo, I think, thanks for your time this morning. Good to have you.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, great. And I really hope that you were monitoring, but how important is this question that we put to the people?
The voice is quite low. Let me just see. Please come again.
So I'm asking how important is the question that we put to the people? And the question is, what is that one thing that you want to see changed, the reason you would vote in the December polls?
Very significant, because that is all that politics is about. I mean, transformation of the state in a way that affects the lives of the people. So crucially, with every cycle that we meet to decide as a people with respect to the leadership, the political leadership, I mean, we also looking at what has happened to us and then the way forward, what is going to happen, the sort of transformation, the agenda to bring this transformation about, and stuff like that. So these questions are crucial.
Are the people interested in looking at their situation or looking at something within their community that they either are impressed of or they want changed? Do we look at these things as a people when we're voting?
There have been a lot of arguments on this issue, but I would say that we do look, actually, irrespective of how you look at it. I mean, there are people who naturally vote for particular political traditions, but that notwithstanding, they all expect, some change in their life. They want change in their communities. I think it's a basic thing. People want, some transformation, development in their lives, conditions of life, and everything that pertains to it. People want that. And to the extent that we know the politicians are those whose responsibility it is to bring this change about. Anytime we go to the polls, consciously or unconsciously, this is at the back of people's mind.
Are those who come to us to look for our votes, are they aware of this, or are they just thinking, oh, they're just saying it because maybe somebody is going to put a microphone in front of them and is asking them the question? Are they mindful that the people really need some kind of transformation in their immediate communities?
The politicians generally are mindful, but at the same time, they also know that people are vulnerable. So when they get into office, invariably, if the polity is not strong enough as to insist on accountability, they will do their own things. They are self-interested individuals going into their political parties, but the political party is not necessarily altruistic. They are also self-interested body. But then at the end of the day, to the extent that what they do, comes to be premised on their ability to deliver and to, if you like, support the people, bring development to, the people, the good people of Ghana, then the linkage become established so that even in office, they know that their continued stay, becomes premised on their ability to deliver. Then you have development, if you like, occurring in the society. So there's some sort of tension built in democratic regimes and is beginning to play out in Ghana.
How do we hold the politician, accountable to what they've said they would do? How do we ensure? Essentially, I guess I'm asking, how do we outsmart them? Because we know that they are usually smarter.
There are various forms of accountability. The people have only one mechanism, and that is the 4-year thing. What is going to happen to us, the general elections? That is the only opportunity for people to really get even with the politicians. And that is it, what is happening in Ghana. And somehow it has been happening. Politicians get voted into office, they get voted out. That is the moment of accountability at the level of the people. And then there are other levels of accountability too.
Yeah, but that's a shame, right? Because if that's the only option that we have, then what we do is to either change you at the end of the 4-year tenure because we see that you have not performed, or you've performed, and so we give you another mandate.
It's interesting to hear you say that it's a shame. States, political scientists have been, examining this issue, over the years, and it looks like the current arrangement is the best that could be given to people. Don't forget about the fact that there are other systems that simply don't give people the opportunity to make any choices at all. So, the current arrangement that you derided is so far the best that has come to us. Isn't that much of a shame? The 4-year period that we've given ourselves, I don't think it's so bad. It's okay. It's okay. Politicians really know that it's really powerful. If you take a look at what is happening now, the sort of, I was going to say aggression, but I don't think aggression is a good word. President Mahama really wants to be in office. You want to say that, he's had a turn. Why not allow some other person in the NDC to come? Let's ask him why he decided to come back. Then you know that the 4-year thing is not a shame. It's really powerful. It's telling on them. Politicians are afraid of that. The next elections. That is the only thing that puts fear in them. It's working. I think it's good for us for now.
Well, I guess for some of us, we're thinking, the 4-year can get them to do things, so why don't we reduce it so we can see a lot more development?
If you recall, President Kufuor at the end of his term, suggested that we increase it. I think the French system has a 2 7-year term or so, or 2 5-year term. I don't recall the number, but they have longer periods. But generally, political scientists argue, and this position supported by some political scientists here in Ghana, President Mabodi is one such people. He argues that 4-year period is okay. If you allow them to hold on to political power for a long time, you would not be able to predict what they can do. And so this danger of abuse of power is such that 4-year is okay.
Well, Dr. Kwesi Amache-Boateng, we'll keep asking these relevant questions ahead of the December elections. And we thank you very much for your time this morning with us. He's a political scientist with the KNUST, Dr. Kwesi Amache-Boateng. And that's it for Voters' Voice. We will be in your community very soon. Stay with us when we come back as the National Science and Maths Quiz. The prelims begins today in the Greater Accra region. We're live from the venue.